And hi, this is Rod checking in as we now begin week 5 in our course. So thank you for hanging in there. We've got just another 4 weeks to go, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this week you will have your third discussion board topic. I'm selecting the topic out of chapter 6 from the book that we'll be starting this week, and that's David's 8 Habits of Effective Small Group Leaders. Dave Earley, he and another guy from Liberty went out in the 80s to plant a church in Columbus, Ohio. They first started by gathering, I think, some 8 to 10 groups. And then once they had those groups going, they launched the church. So I found this out years later. I was actually Dave's dorm parent back at Liberty in the 70s. But he had studied this after his early college years at Liberty, really about churches around the world doing small groups and really focusing there the Great Commandment and the Great Commission work of the church. So, in that, they then went on to learn by experience in Columbus and not only saw a church grow to about 1,000, but they multiplied and birthed off other churches, sending out people to plant new churches. So that's what we're reading for this week. You've done Davis on Revitalize. You've finished Fletcher on empowering leaders and raising up leaders and how that's done. Now we're drilling down a little more specifically into the groups of the local church and how do we see healthy groups form and multiply. And so that's what Dave Earley is going to take you through in this particular book on the 8 Habits of a Healthy Leader. But our topic then for this week, the third topic, post just your main thoughts to the topic during this week. Next week, then make your responses to one another's post. But on page 63, he states this in the chapter on mentoring. In no way is a Christian more like Jesus than when he or she is making disciples and raising up leaders. I want to ask you to discuss that. I'll put that into this email that the YouTube that I'm making here is going to be housed in. But why does he make that statement? And if that's true, then how do we carve out time and understand the calling, the value, and the commitment we must be making to actually carry this out? And so the whole chapter will be very interesting to you on mentoring. Just a couple other highlights from the book. He talks about starting out dreaming of a healthy group, that you could lead a healthy group to dream that. And he says, grow in health, increase in numbers, and multiply into multiplying groups. I'm just pointing that out because that's what you're going to be reading about in this book. It's never for just us four and no more, without any other plans of touching other lives and seeing God reach more people through us. But it's that dream of, yes, reaching lives, but making disciples, that we can multiply more groups from our work together. And then he takes us into asking for apprentices. And then in chapter 3 talks about this formula. It's very interesting if you'll especially watch pages 40 and 41, how the matter of just inviting people works, and even giving ratios as to why and how that breaks down. And then in chapter 5, he'll take you into the actual agenda of small groups as they practice them. But what you're going to see is the 5 W's. And if I can find it, I'm going to attach it to this email, the PowerPoint that the co-pastor that left from Liberty to go with Dave Earley to pastor and plant the church in Columbus, his name is Rod Dempsey. Rod has created about a 100-slide PowerPoint that will break down these 5 W's. The 5 W's are used in different churches around the world. If I can remember them, they're welcome, worship, word, witness, and works. Basically, those are the five. And so in chapter 5, he's going to break out these five and explain that to you. So that's what's ahead for this week. Let me just encourage you to hang in there. If you're a little behind, keep going. But thanks for all of your guys, your hard work, and thanks for the post on the discussion boards as well as the reading reflections you're doing. So the reading reflection for early will be due next week at the end of week 6. So this week you're going through the first 6 chapters. Next week you'll do the last 6 chapters, or be 5 chapters through chapter 11. And then we'll get into our last book in week 7. That's Johnson's book on God's style. It's a neat read, study. Actually, he did a dissertation on this, helping your members, helping yourself realize the way God's gifted you to be able to naturally leverage your temperament and your gifting to share Christ with others, and helping your people get out of the guilt of Satan, tell them they can't do it because they're not an evangelist, or they don't have the gifts like somebody else that they think is a real strong witness for Christ, but just using the gifts God's given them. I think this will be very, very pivotal in your own understanding, but especially in your helping your people understand how they can be participants in the gospel. All right, thanks, guys. Have a great week for Christ ahead. Bye.